just put together like a brief hand review from two final tables that I played yesterday and a week before. Um, well, I got Claude to create most of these slides, so there might be mistakes on the slides. If anything, all of it like I can verbally walk through it. And then the way I want to go about today is kind of like instead of just giving you the hand history, I'm gonna put you guys in the spot that I was in, and then get you guys to decide what you would do in those spots. And then we'll show what I actually did, whether it was right or wrong, and then we can kind of discuss from there. So some context. So both of these are like 1K tourneys. I think one is like 80K up top. The second one is like 30K up top. Final table of like 8 in both of them, and we come in second in chips in both tournaments. So in a pretty good position to run deep and hopefully do well. But we'll start with this one actually. Let me see, make sure it doesn't give it away. Okay, cool. So context on this one is 6 players left. This is 80K up top, 17K locked up already. We're second in chips, but there's like kind of one runaway chip leader. Actually, I think that's a typo. I think he had 48 big blinds, not 88. A bunch of people between 20 to 25 bigs. And we're second in chips, but like not by a wide margin. Um, yeah. And there's no like clear like small stack. Um, Button raises from hijack. And my first question to you guys is just like, what do you think this chip leader is doing in this spot? And his 48 bigs, not 88. So he's not like a runaway chip leader. But he has 48 big blinds. Like, how wide do you think this chip leader is supposed to be? And then we'll talk about kind of like our decision. And we'll actually even touch on like what these other players should be doing as well. But
Wait, who raised Button? Or
he raised hijack. We're in the small blind. Oh, Button is over here. Yeah, I know it's a bit confusing. So this is Button.
So the chip leader opens from the hijack.
Yeah, chip leader opens from the hijack off 48 bigs. So yeah, just general thoughts. What do you guys think that this guy's supposed to be doing? Assume like you're coming into this final table, like not much of a specific read on any particular player. What would you guys be doing in this spot with your range?
I mean, I think I would three bet small.
Okay.
Just
Wait, you're saying as me,
yeah,
right?
in this
Okay.
position, yeah. He should be
Uh,
opening wider, right? And you want to knock out the big blinds. If you just flat his open, the big blind's invited to come along with a pretty good price. So I would three bet, but not on the bigger side, probably on the small side.
okay. Cool. But I think you were saying something.
I said three, but since he's the chip leader, he's gonna have a wider range, and the button's gonna know that. Is that accurate that he has 20 bigs?
Yep, the button or the big blind. Yeah, they both had about 20, 21 bigs. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and yeah, he's just gonna. I would three bet as well.
Okay, so you 3 bet if it folds to us. Before we get to what we do in our spot, what do you guys think cutoff and button, like what's their primary strategy here when in their positions and when the chip leader opens? Like, are you gonna play mostly 3 bet, mostly call, 3 bet small, 3 bet jam? What do you guys think?
They should be more polar, right? Or I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, relatively polar, relatively tight ranges. But let me ask this first: like, do you guys think are you guys gonna have any flats? Like, will you have anything like in your calling range?
No, because it invites like it invites too much of a squeeze from the blinds.
Okay.
For example, if I was in the small blind with your position, but the only difference is the cutoff calls the open, I think I'd be more incentivized to squeeze with ace ten of clubs,
Hmm.
facing because there's more dead money to win now.
Mm-hmm.
And the cutoff's calling range can't be that strong
Mm-hmm.
because any good hand he would have, he would be three betting himself.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah. So you would basically not have any calling range, and then would you play that same way in chip EV, or that's an adjustment you're making
No,
for
chip
ICM?
EV is different for sure. Because there are hands I want to like flat in chip EV. The
Mm-hmm.
hands that play well post flop, but for example, hate to get want to realize my equity and I don't want to get jammed on by the chip leader.
Mhm.
So something like maybe Queen Jack of Hearts or like King 10 suited, that kind of stuff that do really well as flats, I think. But in this position, I don't want to flat because there's too much ICM involved when I can never realize my equity pretty much because the chip leader is always going to be barreling pretty much everything he has, right?
Yes. So yeah, you're not going to have any flats here in ICM. You are going to have flats in chip EV here off of like 20 bigs. Queen Jack suited, King 10 suited, most of those are going to be 3-bet jams off 20 bigs, especially against like a loose potential chip leader. But you're gonna have some flats for like some of your like middling pairs that don't necessarily want to jam, like maybe on the lower side, but also like some of your lower suited stuff, like Queen 9 suited, some of the stuff that like doesn't want to jam, not good enough to jam, but like still has like decent equity. And then you're also gonna have some flats as traps with things like aces and kings sometimes. But yeah, in ICM specific, the main takeaway here is that like cutoff and button should have 0 flats. So like let's take a look at like what that like what the buttons range should look like. Let me, where did I have it pulled up? I think on this one. No, hold on. Sorry, too many tabs. I had it on one of these. Okay, JK, I fucked up. I don't have it. I'll pull it up later. But the takeaway for you guys is that there's no calls, and button is supposed to be playing purely like 3-bet or fold. They're gonna have some like 3-bet jams. They're gonna have some also like 3-bet, like for small sizing, with a very polar range. So what actually happened in game is button called. So button called, which is a mistake on their end, like a big kind of like ICM mistake. Yeah.
Could you define what a flat is?
A flat is a call.
Okay.
Yeah. So then button calls here. And then I'm now in this spot where and I'll kind of answer where like ace 10 suited is actually kind of the hand that I would never 3-bet pre-flop against the chip leader. Like I would take like ace 5, ace 4 suited to 3-bet. And then I would 3-bet my value stuff. But like ace 10 suited, ace jack suited, like these are the kind of hands that generally are in that middling range that like you will see, if you ever see flats from, are kind of the typical hands that you will see flats. Yeah, especially in this position, like I've got a pretty nice hand to peel against an aggressive chip leader. But yeah, so I would have like in my mind, I was planning to pure flat this against the chip leader open. And then I was like, I tanked for a bit because now I was like, I wasn't expecting to see a flat out of the button. But now, what would you guys do here? Would you now like, I mean, if your plan was to 3-bet before, do you feel like more incentivized to 3-bet? Do you call? What do you guys think? Maybe take like a second to think about it, and then I'm gonna try to hopefully get the right sim up for you. Okay, was it this one? It was. Okay, actually here, I do have the right one now. Okay, so this was the button range versus chip leader open. So main things is like 0% call. So like literally button is playing 0 calls, and they're very, very tight. I mean, this is like a 10% range. So they're going to be raising small, which is very polar, like aces, kings, queens, ace, king, and then they've got ace 5 suited. The main thing here in ICM, we've talked about in our other sessions, is like blocker stuff is really important. So when you see your like bluff raises, it's largely coming from like your low ace x suited kind of region, sometimes like king x suited. And then the jams are coming from like this like sort of like middling stuff that just has like good enough equity and just kind of wants to ship it and isn't necessarily doing too bad when called off. Like if they're calling with a pair, you're still flipping a decent amount of time. Yeah, so that's how this range is constructed. So 0 calls. Let me just show you for the sake of like what it would have happened if this guy folded. So if this guy folded, you'll see my range here. So yeah, so I do have a decent amount of calls, like because I expect that this chip, like I have the most ICM pressure here in this scenario. I'm second in chips. There's a bunch of people in this 20 to 25 bigs. Like I don't really, I'm very disincentivized from wanting to play a pot against a chip leader, especially like a big pot. Hence why I'm gonna have a decent number of flats, especially with some stronger stuff in my range. So I actually have 11% flats. I'm not playing as kind of like polar, and you can kind of see like all of this stuff here is like very classic like flatting region. Um, Actually, sorry, I'm a bit colorblind, so actually I don't even know if there's. Is there any mixing? Can you guys see?
No mixing.
Yeah, there's no. Okay, okay, so pure call is what I assume. I just wanted to double check. Yeah, so you're calling with this stuff. So ace 10 suited would have been a pure call. And then again, we're seeing like the three bets. If we're choosing like dustier stuff like king 5 suited, king 6 suited, all this like lower suited stuff. And then obviously like some more premiums and then some you're pulling from some offsuit stuff too. Yeah, so that's how I play against just the chip leader open if it folds to me. But now, what do you guys think now when button calls? Yeah, and I can't even put it in here. I can't force it to call. But you would say more squeezing. Okay. What do you think, Leo?
I would call and see what's on the flop and see what comes up.
Okay.
Ace 10 suited is not bad. And you'll see what comes up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you saw like our.
I wouldn't raise because I don't know what they have. So I would probably just call.
Okay, so you would call.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean that's our strategy. If there wasn't another caller, it's a pure call. Anyone else? What do you guys do? Raise, call, raise. Okay.
How much? So how much should the hijack open to?
Two bigs.
Probably like here. Trying to get like the blinds out.
Okay. So you make it six bigs. You said you would raise Chi. What size would you make it?
I think I would make it a size where I would commit myself against the button, but not the chip leader. So if like I don't need to raise too big because I assume I'm happy to get it in with the button, but I don't want to get it in with big blind. So all right, the initial raiser. So I think maybe even something like 5 or 6. It doesn't have to go very big. Because the ICM is pretty huge here. So if chip leader shoves, then I have an easy fold. But if the chip leader folds and button shoves, then it's just on market price and call pretty much. So.
Okay. Sorry, you have thought? Yeah, go ahead.
Should you consider if the button has any traps?
They should not have any traps. I mean, obviously, when somebody does something you don't expect to begin with, I think it's just fairly intuitive if you've got value to want to raise here. And I think when they flat here, it's really kind of like this like dustier part of their range that they're gonna like they didn't feel confident enough to like raise with, but they still want to see a flop. Is what I'll see population wise, generally speaking. Sure, you might have certain players, but I just wouldn't expect a trap here very often. Yeah, that's a good question. Cool. Well, in short, and I ran it by a friend of mine, Aram Zobium, if some of you guys know, but really, really good tournament pro. I sent him this hand. He was in this tournament earlier that day as well. So I flatted, but that was a mistake. And the better move would have been just a jam here. A smaller sizing, a non-all-in sizing isn't really great with a hand this strong. Like, because then you're still like, yeah, like if you three bet to like 6 or 7 bigs and the chip leader jams, you kind of have to fold and you're just really sad about it. You're trying to avoid like situations where you're kind of like sad. He can just 4-bet so liberally against us with like ace 5 suited or like a bunch of offsuit aces, then we have to fold so much equity, and it's just really devastating. And then also if we 3-bet small, we might end up having to play post flop against this guy as well, which is also going to get uncomfortable. And then we've put whatever 20% of our stack and we lose this pot, and then now we could be lowest in chips too. So that like 6 to 7 big blinds matters a lot, where if we pick this up, then we're like a much further ahead in second place. If we take down these like 5 or so big blinds, we'll be like 40, almost 40 plus. So yeah, correct pre-flop move would have been a jam. I ended up busting this hand and losing in 6th. So this is a clear like final table ICM punt by just not knowing this. Like I only knew what my response was to the initial open, and somebody else made like an ICM mistake, and like it kind of threw me off, and then it led to my own mistake, and then we ended up busting. We can talk about the post flop play, but it's much less important than this pre flop punt, in my opinion. But yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I guess when you said that the correct move is to jam, but if you jam and you get called, aren't you always behind? So isn't this like always a bad jam?
Not necessarily. When we get called, sometimes we could be flipping, and we are good. We do expect, yes, like a lot of the time when we do get called, especially by a chip leader, we will be behind. But these are two pretty wide ranges and pretty weak ranges, so we just don't get expect to get called very often. Like I expect this jam to get through like very very often, and just like overperform. So yeah, like of course, like obviously the chip leader is going to have top of range still in their range, and we're just going to run into sometimes. But this is just going to work so often that like it's still a very profitable play.
But if you're facing two wide ranges, wouldn't like a three bet accomplish the same thing as opposed to, because they're still going to fold their like ace eight offs, their like ace nine offs, and like king jack offs.
Well, because they can four bet rip it with those hands, and we can't. It's going to be really tough for us to call. Like the chip leader can four bet rip ace eight off, ace nine off. They can also call jack 10 suited in position, and we are very disincentivized from wanting to play post flop, especially against a chip leader. Like in ICM, it's just you don't want to play post flop. You generally don't want to play post flop. A lot of like this is why pre flop becomes way way more important, because most of the meaningful decisions are happening pre flop in ICM scenarios. You're not calling as much. You're not seeing a flop. It's just a lot of like three betting, sometimes four betting. Yeah, yeah. Playing post flop out of position against somebody who covers us is like really not a spot we want to be in, with big pay jumps to the final table. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, we can show post flop really quickly, like, and what ended up happening for the sake of the hand. But basically, I called, big blind called. We see a flop, four ways, 5-2-6. So I flop nut flush draw, two overs. It checks around to the button. The button bets 2.8 bigs. I end up, well, actually, before I say, maybe it's worth asking you guys, like, what would you do in this spot now, as played?
It's a bit of a spoiler since you busted.
Yeah, you know I lost.
But this is pretty. I don't know. I would raise here and stack up against button and big blind. That's pretty much it.
Did you check jam? Wait, what happened?
I didn't say what I did yet.
Um,
I didn't say what I did.
He checked, and then the chip leader initial raise and check behind, check
and
back.
then button.
The button bet really small,
Yeah.
like way too small. So I would always.
Yeah, but it's like 25% pot, maybe a little more than that, like 30%, something like that. Yeah. So you would jam?
I would raise.
You would raise.
I would pretty much raise, and then try to get it in on every turn, pretty much.
Okay. Were you gonna say something, Anthony?
I just I think I would call.
Okay, you would call.
Any size.
I would
Yeah.
call as well.
Yeah, I think honestly, it can go either way. Like, I think if we do raise, probably prefer a jam for similar reasons, like, of like jamming like pre-flop. We just had like have a really good hand, like take our like just want to take all of our equity to the streets. And also, if we just take down this pot right now, like if we get called, we're still in a great spot. We're probably 50-50, maybe it's like equity dog. But like if we could just take down the whole pot, like 12 big blinds at this stage is huge, is a massive pickup here. So I'd probably just jam. I ended up just calling in game, just really defaulting to like this thing when you're second in chips is you're really kind of handcuffed, especially with like the chip leader and kind of still in the pot. They can put you in some like really nasty kind of like scenarios. But I expect the chip leader to be checking a lot of his range here, so he can still have like a lot of good hands. So we're not meant to have a lot of check raises here in theory in general. So I call, big blind also calls, and then the chip leader jams, and then button folds, and then it folds back to us, and then I tank for a while, and like I think in my head like this is a lot of like flush draws, like straight draws, like, and I'm very likely ahead equity wise against most of the range. I think the main consideration is just like if this is meant to ever be a fold because of because of ICM. I don't know, and I couldn't really run this spot again because this just like this whole scenario just doesn't exist in like, or you can't really find it in the solvers. But anyways, I ended up calling. Big blind folded. Chip leader had like 7-9 of clubs or something like that, or like 7-4 of clubs, something like that. And then he hit like a 7 on the river, and then we lost. So unfortunate because we would have been like the runaway chip lead if we won this one. But yeah, so that's how we busted that one after coming second in chips. Any questions on that hand? Yeah.
Why do you say that when he jams he also has a flush draw considering you have two clubs, so you're blocking a lot of his flush combos?
Sorry, I shouldn't say like that definitively. I just think there's a decent amount of the time when he jams for this large of a sizing. But of course he still has over pairs. And I'm doing okay against like over pairs. He's gonna have flop sets. I don't really put him on like a straight necessarily, but there's a decent amount of draws that he can have where I'm just like ahead of those draws. If he ever has a flush, I have him like that was one of the best case scenarios. Or if he just has like something like 7-8, one club or something like that. But yeah, even against his value, I'm doing okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's look at a different hand. So this is more of just like a pre-flop decision, but like this is next tournament. This isn't the final table yet, actually. This is 12 left, 17 paid. I'm second in chips out of 12 left. And then there's like this guy, 17 big blinds opens from the cutoff. I have queen eight suited. I guess it kind of spoils at the bottom. I decided to three bet this one. And I'm curious, I'll ask you guys, like, what would you guys do with queen eight suited? I think probably the very natural thing is to just call in this position, but I'm curious if any of you guys would play it differently, would three bet a hand like this or mostly click call. Jam sometimes.
It depends on the other stacks on the table and the payouts, right?
Yeah, so at this point, like 17 bigs, he's kind of like square, like he's probably like 12th out of 17. Oh, sorry, there's 12 left, 17 paid. No. I got this one wrong. So 12 left. He's probably like 8th or 9th out of 12. So there's like definitely a few shorter stacks. There's like some like 10 big blind stacks. So he's got a reasonable amount of like ICM pressure on him. Yeah, do you guys think this is a good three bet choice or? Do you think it's good? What do you guys think? Anyone think it was bad?
I think it's a good hand to three bet bluff. It's quite playable. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So I'll say this is a mistake, and I was definitely widening up my like three bet like too wide. And the main thing you really want to stick with like more of your ace x and king x here as opposed to like queen eight suited. Like I had some like I've seen this in some charts, and you're gonna see like some middling king x suited, some middling like queen x suited. But this was just like too wide and is just usually a pure call. I would never jam with this kind of hand because I mean this is just like a pure bluff, and I'd want to like I'd want to induce, and like our three bet is gonna generate so many folds against especially like a wider cutoff range. I just don't think we need to jam. We're just gonna get obviously called by better hands, and like we're gonna generate a very similar effect just given the ICM by like generating a decent amount of folds with just a non all in sizing. But I think I had the sim here just as an example. Let's see. is this one? So yeah, we had cutoff open. We're in the big blind. Yeah, I think you can see queen eight suited, pure call, and then we're gonna be like raising with we're gonna be jamming with like our bad like suited aces, but then our raises are coming from like our like click size raising are coming from like mostly like this offsuit region down there, like ace x. So you do see actually some king x, but it's pulling more from like the offsuit region, ace two off to ace four off, queen four off, etc. So the idea is there, and you can pull from like the ones that kind of like make sense for you. I thought it was okay in game, and then we end up getting ripped. He jammed in our face, and then we folded. Oops. Close this one. Okay, let's go to another one, maybe a more meaningful hand. Okay, pocket nines here. This is now 12 left again. We're second in chips. Hijack opens off 32 bigs. We cover. Yeah, so we cover, and then big blind has like, I think everyone behind us has somewhere between 20 to 25 bigs. So what do you guys do here with pocket nines? What do you guys think? Feel free to.
Probably raise.
Okay. What do you think, specifically against this player? Like, what do you think our risk premium is against this guy who's probably third in chips? I'd probably say third or fourth in chips. Like, do we want to play a big pot against this guy or no?
Ideally not.
Right. So, like, this guy, we have almost similar stacks. Like, in general, we know we're not supposed to be flatting very much, but we have to respect kind of like the risk premium against other fairly large stacks. And like one big thing about final table ICM is that larger stacks are meant to play, like are basically meant to like soft collude with each other. Like you're gonna see a lot of post flops is just like kind of checking down. Like even like I misplayed, like I was final table of like I think it was like the 2.5K high roller in Montreal a couple years ago or last year. I ended up finishing third, but I like misplayed a spot against another big chip leader where like I was late position open, he called, and then I flopped a set. And then I checked, he bet, I check raised. Anyways, and then I think I bet turn, bet river. I think he like rivered a flush or something. I lost like a lot of chips. I was talking to my coach after. He's like never check raise the flop. Like yes, you're supposed to check raise obviously like with your value, but like when you guys are 1 and 2 in chips, like you just have zero incentive to want to play a big pot against this guy. Like you should never check raise the flop. Like, and then there's other ways that you can get value, but like losing those chips and like getting bumped down to whatever fifth, sixth in chips after that is just like pretty devastating. And I think similar ideas play out here, where like this guy is like he has like 80, 90% or 80% of my stack. I don't really want to play a big pot against him. If I 3-bet and then get 4-bet, that's really uncomfortable. So I end up playing just call here with this hand. I would choose, again, a more polarizing range if I was going to raise. So like more premium stuff, and then like ace-6 suited, ace-5 suited, ace-4 suited. I would actually 3-bet relatively liberally with those kind of hands, especially against this guy when I cover him, because he's going to feel a lot of pressure against me as well. Yeah, so I ended up calling here in this spot. I'll pull up the sim after, but let's go through what happens the rest of his hand. So I call, and then big blind also calls. I guess it kind of gives away that big blind ended up folding the flop, but hijack bets. So we have an overpair on 6 of hearts, 3 of hearts, 5 of spades. What do you guys do here in position against a bet on the flop?
How big does he go?
It says 2.25 big, so it's like 33% pot. Okay, you say easy call. What do you guys think? Anyone else think differently? Okay, just a call. Let me see if I can pull this one up. Hijack, cut off. 40 bigs. Yeah, I called in game. I called in game. Then we get like a really gross turn. Two of hearts. He bets super small. Four bigs. What do you guys think now?
Could be a bait. Could be a bait for you.
It could be a bait. That's true.
Maybe ask something to him. Just try to.
I mean, if he's double barreling on this heart, he at least has one heart, right? Or better.
Maybe.
Even have like
Yeah, like let's think about his flop range. Like what do you think are his value bets on the flop? And then what do you think are his bluffs? So like what do you think would bet for value here? I mean, how often do we think he's even betting into us on the flop?
If he knows like the ICM pressure, he shouldn't be betting much bluffs besides like maybe like the worst hands that he has, and obviously like ace six, ace five, something like that. Ace four maybe.
he's not. I don't think he's betting like ace five on the flop, unless it's ace five of hearts specifically.
With a heart.
Even just like pocket sevens, pocket eights are probably checking the flop because there's the chip leader's behind, and there's also big blind left to act. Like the worst thing you can do with sevens is bet the flop and then get raised if you have to fold. Right?
Yeah, so I mean, from a chippy V standpoint, first, like this guy is almost first supposed to range check the flop. Like in chippy V, you open late position, you get called by late position. Like this is probably like an 85% check globally across all flops. On a board like this, especially with big blind calling, I would expect even more checks and with like heavy ICM implications with a chip leader behind you. Like, so I was already pretty scared when he chose to bet the flop at all. Like, I was not expecting to see any bets. So I was like kind of proceeding cautiously. And I would expect, I mean, like value wise is going to be like, he's going to have sets. I don't know if he's necessarily opening, I mean, maybe he's still opening pocket threes, but yeah, like he's going to have sets. He's going to have like aces with an ace of hearts, like kings with king of hearts. I still think these hands are going to be like a decent amount of checks though. And then he's gonna, yeah, mostly have bluffs that contain heart, like ace four of hearts, like pretty equity, like strong equity bluffs as well. So it's already pretty scary, and like almost all his bluffs are gonna have a heart in them. Yeah. So then on this turn, like where we get another heart, four to a straight, it's just like we have very, very like even though he makes it so small, it's just like very uncomfortable, and he could just put us in like a world of hurt. Even if he just has like I don't even know. He need like ace of hearts, like some offsuit ace X, like yeah, like ace seven off. That chose to like which would be yeah one of the more like clear ones, but there's very few bluffs given how tight I expect his range to be on the flop. So I end up just folding here, and it's just kind of like not really worth playing a spot where I'm gonna have to just be guessing a lot of the time, especially against like somebody where we both have a lot of chips. There's gonna be much better spots where, especially when in like final table, where you just get to like raise and take a bunch of blinds a ton of the time. Okay, let's look
Did you
at.
bet him on any hand spectacular, like at the end?
Not a very specific hand. No, I mean I kind of listed what are some of the hands that would make sense. Like yeah, he could have. I mean, I guess he could still for this sizing, he could still bet something like aces with the ace of hearts and just like not expect me. And I won't have many 4x here, so he could kind of be squeezing some value from like all of my like middling pairs. Of course, he can just have like flushes here. Um, I guess he could be betting some fours with the four of hearts as well. That just made I think ace four makes a decent amount of sense, especially if you have ace four of hearts. So I just expect like him to just have it here a lot of the time. Yeah.
For the pre-flop spot, since you're flatting with nines, I'm assuming you're also gonna flat with tens and possibly jacks as well.
Yeah, and I played a similar spot at the final table where I flatted with jacks against like another. Yeah, I'm pretty much like, and even queens sometimes. Like, I think it starts to be kings plus that might be more of my pure three bets. But like honestly, like quite honestly, if like we were like first and second, like I would probably flat kings even in position here a decent amount of the time. Um, yeah, so like it's playing pretty cautiously and pretty like collusively against somebody. Like we weren't like massive chip leads. It was like 32 and like whatever 40 bigs. But if we were like 70 and 80 bigs and everyone had like 20 or something or less, then like yeah, I might just like flat kings. Yeah. Do you have a question, T? Okay. Cool. Let's see. Okay, kind of another spot. This is final table. I think we had maybe 5 or 6 left. Um, we are again another spot where I'm second in chips and the chip leader opens, and I have 6-4 of diamonds on the big blind. So chip leader has 62 bigs. I have 40 bigs on the big blind. Everyone else had somewhere between 15 to like 25 or 30 bigs. So first, what do you guys think in this? Forget my hand in this spot, but like, what do you guys think we're generally meant to be doing out of the big blind here, defending against chip leader?
I think you're still supposed to defend with a good amount of your hands. Aside, like with the pressure, you start folding some of those bottom of your range, but like you still call a lot of bottom hands.
Okay. So like, let's say normal defending range against cutoff is like you're continuing with, I don't know, call like 80% of hands. Like how much tighter do you think that gets in, or because you're saying you're shedding some of the bottom, how much tighter do you think that gets here in ICM?
What's the ICM? Are you in money already?
This is final table. I think there's 6 players left. Yeah, 6 players left. We're like first and second in chips.
If I had to guess, maybe around 50.
Okay. So like a considerable drop from 80% to 50%. Anybody else have guesses? Or do you guys all agree? This is what cut off, right? Anyone defending less, defending wider than 50%? Okay. Well, let's see. Let's see if this one will give us a good result. Okay, here, we'll take a look at this one. So this is a quick one I found. Not exactly the same, but second in chips. I mean, this has a lot more like stacks close to us, but it'll produce at least a reasonable effect for kind of what we're trying to illustrate. It's still pretty heavy ICM because there's like this one super small stack. But you'll see kind of like it drops from like normally defending against here, we would be playing like 80% of hands. Now we're folding like 55% of hands. So that drops from like 80 to what is that, 45%. So almost like having our defending range. We're still going to be defending with like, so I had 6-4 suited. I did end up calling there, which we are going to want to be doing, but like we're shedding a lot of our like offsuit stuff, our worst like suited stuff. So I think main takeaway is just like we want to be a lot tighter when defending in heavy ICM scenarios, defending the big blind. Yeah, so just something to keep in mind because I see this happen. A lot of these mistakes happen a lot is like people are still like defending close to chip EV ranges in ICM spots. Okay, we'll just play out this hand, but basically I check, he goes small on a flop that I expect him to pretty much bet range. That's not a 4 of diamonds on the flop. That's a mistake. But I think I had backdoor flush draw. It was probably the jack of diamonds and bottom pair. This is a hand that I could be raising with in chip EV, but not one I would be check raising again against chip leader. So just adjustments that I make here is like I'm not trying to play a big pot against a chip leader here. So I'm just playing pure call. And then we get a pretty nice turn card, a 4. So ignore the bets there because that's not accurate. But what do you guys do here? What do you guys do here in chip EV, or what do you think our options are now, and how might you adjust here in ICM?
I mean, chip EV is. I think you would raise this for sure, but in this situation, I think it's.
So ignore the bet for a second. It's on us. So nothing's happened. We just played the flop, and then the turn guard got dealt.
Oh, and then there could be some merit into reading on this turn, but I think as played, it's probably still a check call. Keep his bluffs in. You don't want to raise here and get jammed on, and then he shows us with pocket queens, and then you just bust out at 6 or something. That's just like the worst case scenario. So
Yeah. It's dicey. So for sure here, we're going to have a decent amount of leads. So if anyone hasn't really studied like turn donkey much, you're going to have a lot of, as the out of position player, you're going to get donks on like paired cards, especially when they're the lower card here. We're going to have way more 4x than they are. But it's also worth noting that like we have way less 4x than we normally would because our big blind defending range is a lot tighter. Yeah, so for that reason, like generally speaking, in ICM, we're gonna want to donk a bit less. Like, whereas in certain pools in chip EV, I would almost like always donk on this card. But I would probably adjust that and maybe do something like 50-50. I did end up deciding to donk here, so I led for 3 bigs into 8.1. They ended up calling, and then we got 9 of hearts on the river. I bet like 85% pot, and they folded. I don't really like my sizing here. I think I could have just probably gone smaller and also not risk as many chips in case he does have like something like queens or jacks or something that would obviously would also just like kind of like potentially trap a lot on the turn too. Yes, exactly. That's also very scary. So I think I kind of got way too greedy here, and I could have really put myself in a world of hurt. And I think I would have been happier with like 50%, 60% pot. I actually also don't even hate just checking and then like check calling on the river here. Cool. That is the last 10 I think I'll go through. Let me see if there's one more. Maybe I'll cover one last one. This one was an interesting spot. I actually tanked for a while on this one. This was 3 players left. Chip leader has 32, 33 bigs. Small blind has 6.5 bigs, and I'm in the big blind with 25 bigs. And then chip leader folds, small blind jams for 6.5 bigs. I have 9-7 of diamonds. What do you guys think? You guys call with this hand, you fold with this hand. What do you guys do in chip EV? Yeah. Chip EV, pure call. Bounty tournament call, for sure. I mean, you get even more equity. But what do you guys think in this scenario where we're second in chips? First place covers us by 7 bigs. Do you guys think this is close? Do you guys think this is... Yeah, Peter, you're going to say something? You think it's a fold? Anyone else?
How many players are left?
3.
You got it.
You think we call? Okay. Who said call? So a couple of calls. Okay.
There's a lot of outs.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll take a look. In game, I decided to fold, but I felt like it was very close. So left side is what their jamming range is. So obviously jamming really wide, 52%. And then the right side is what we're supposed to call with. So like, I was right, that's very close. It's literally just a border. And 9-7 suited is supposed to be a call. At the same time, like, I don't really trust other players to kind of like find a lot of the jams that they should be all the time. So like, I think I'm pretty happy to fold the borders here. So anyways, I folded 9-7 suited, and then a couple hands later, this guy busts. So and then we're down to 2 heads up, and then I lose heads up. But yeah, that was the last hand to go through. But as general takeaways from like the hands today, we talked about like big blind defending in heavy ICM scenarios. You're going to be defending a lot tighter. In some scenarios, you're going down from an 80% defending range to like 40, 45%. 2 is you're very disincentivized from wanting to play big pots against other chip leaders. So just know that like if you're a big stack at a final table and there's another big stack, like you don't want to be check raising or raising them very much at all. You're meant to kind of like soft collude and just let a lot of these like smaller stacks bust. And then there's just not a lot of post flop play happening in general. So as like middling stacks, you're not supposed to be calling very much post flop, or sorry, pre flop, and you're going to see more like three betting and folding happening, and a lot tighter ranges in final table ICM. Then we can wrap. But thank you guys, and good luck today.